For more perspective, CBS 13 political analyst Gary Dietrich joins us live.
Gary, I think the first thing that comes to mind is the divide in this country. It's no secret. It was no secret today was the day the electoral votes would be counted. People were boarding planes to protest today. So how is Washington, D.C. so unprepared to protect our U.S. Capitol?
Well, that's a great question, Curtis. And that's going to be dissected, you can bet, in great detail in the days ahead. You know, for all Americans, especially those of us that have spent any time inside our nation's capital, this was a deeply sad and concerning day. Sad to see what was happening. I mean, the desecration of our chambers where the people's business is done. And then the loss of, now we know, at least one life. It's just deeply concerning, and there's going to be a lot of consternation about how this actually could happen in a building that should be one of the most secure in the world.
Yeah, and you know, it was only well into this chaos and the violence and after calls from his own party leaders, Gary, that the president actually finally came out with the video statement we played at the beginning of the newscast telling people to go home. So what are your thoughts on that video?
Well, I certainly think that it would have behooved the president to get in front of the cameras earlier. We had reports early in the afternoon that indeed there was a camera being set up in the Oval, but I think some people thought, hey, he ought to be going live right now and imploring his supporters and all people to calm things down. You know, I think I have this general sense, I hope, and many do, that this was an apex, and from here we find better days ahead because we certainly need them.
Well, some saying democracy is under attack, some blaming the president, saying he incited today's violence. California Congressman Ted Lieu, a Democrat, is calling this a coup attempt and is now asking the vice president, Mike Pence, to invoke the 25th Amendment to immediately remove the president from office. What's the likelihood of that?
I think that's a non-starter. I really honestly believe, Curtis, you heard this today, that if one thing went right today, we saw bipartisan leadership in the Capitol both condemning these violent acts and saying we need to move forward in a peaceful transition of power. Liu's suggestion would simply inflame that. I don't think that's going to happen. And in fact, really, this wasn't so much a coup attempt as it was a violent protest. I think that's the general assessment coming out of Washington tonight.
And talk us through, Gary, where you think things will go from here, the process from here as far as the transition of power. We know the inauguration is technically scheduled to happen in 2 weeks. What do you think?
Well, I mean, there's going to be a lot of questions, Elizabeth, about what happens in 2 weeks. You know, I mean, they've got to get the job done here tonight and or tomorrow. And then in 2 weeks, we're supposed to see an inauguration on the steps of that very Capitol. Will there be protests again? Will those people be inflamed again? There's going to be a lot of conversation and I'm sure a lot of preparation before that event takes place 2 weeks from today.
All right, Gary, we appreciate your context that you bring to the table. Thank you very much. We'll check in with you later on.